I knew that today was going to be a great day. That I must say that I'm very much inspired, even with just the first two speakers, and we're just getting started. What incredible insights. Thank you so much. So moving on, let's get ready for our next speaker, Mr. Stuart Browne, the CEO of Pycap. I'm just going to give you a little bit of the background. Our next speaker is the CEO of Pycap Venture Partners and a respected voice in the Canadian venture capital landscape. His experience in evaluating and scaling startups is unmatched. Please welcome Mr. Stuart Browne with his talk, Scaling Your Startup, a VC's Perspective.
Hello everyone. Firstly, thank you Dariush and Sire for this great opportunity to give this presentation, and thank all of you for having me here and being so attentive. As you heard, my name is Stuart Browne. I'm the CEO of Pycap, and Pycap is a venture capital firm. We have about $20 million in assets under management and 17 companies in our portfolio. In addition to that, we are registered with the Canadian federal government as a designated entity for the Startup Visa Program. And just for a little bit of shameless promotion, I'm going to ask anybody here who is a member or has been a member of the Pycap Incubator Startup Visa Program, if you could please just stand up, just so you can see each other and get to know each other. Amazing, great turnout. Thanks so much for attending. And of course, let's all get a group photo after or during the networking session. Next slide. Okay, so in addition to being the CEO of Pycap, also on the investment committee of an organization called OCI, Ontario government-backed venture capital fund, and I'm a former MBA and Master of Finance instructor at the Schulich School of Business and a former sessional lecturer at the university. Okay, so my presentation today is called Scaling Startups, a Venture Capitalist Perspective. So why am I talking about scaling a startup, and why do I feel it's so important for entrepreneurs to have a VC's perspective? Well, the reason for that is because when you look at the purpose of a corporation, the purpose of a corporation, by definition, is to increase shareholder value into perpetuity. So often entrepreneurs look at their company and think, this is my company, I've communicated this to all of my friends and family, I've gotten investors on board, etc., etc. So they feel that their company is synonymous with themselves. Sorry, where do I, right at the podium here? I gotta like walking around a little bit, but anyways, okay, we'll try to make this work. So, VC's perspective, at your business like it's an asset that is external from yourself. Like any asset, whether it's an asset you hold in a publicly traded stock market, like maybe you're invested in Plum or Apple, you want the value to go up. You want the share price. Sorry about that interruption. All right, let's advance forward. Okay, so let's dive into the venture capitalist perspective. Statistically, I know we heard about 90% of companies or entrepreneurs fail. But those companies who receive VC financing And those of us venture capitalists, but we have a portfolio. Statistically, when you look at the companies that are in our portfolio, generally speaking, only 2 are going to be hugely successful. Or that's what our expectation is. And those 2 that are hugely successful, we hope, are going to be so successful that they compensate the other 8 out of 10 companies. We expect other 2 companies to fail right away, but then there's a remaining 6 companies out of 10. So those 6 companies, like the image here might signify, is something that we call zombie companies, or the Walking Dead and the Living Wounded. So these are the types of businesses that are just treading water, they're just getting by, they're sucking all of the attention, resources, time of the portfolio managers as we're desperately trying to get a return off them and get them to grow, get them to increase shareholder value, but they never really take off. So as mentioned, it's really the 2 companies within our portfolio that we expect to be successful. So 2 out of 10 companies that receive VC financing, who are well funded, are going to be successful. What do we look for as a venture capitalist? We want the companies that we invest in to show to us, to prove to us through validation, proof of concept, and other means that they are going to survive in the short term. And then of course, after we invest in them and they survive, they don't become zombies, they grow exponentially, they scale. That's a term in VC world that we use, where we mean a company is not just growing, but the rate of growth is also growing. That's when you get that hockey stick curve that we refer to in the startup world. And then of course, as a VC, we want the company to exit in the long term. And what I mean by an exit is that a company exits our portfolio, and we exit that company by another investor coming in and buying that from us, whether it's a strategic acquisition or it's another investor that's putting money into the company because we've just taken it public. So when you're a startup, when you're an entrepreneur, and you're thinking like a venture capitalist, you have to think of every unit of resource that is going into your company. Not just capital, but also time, energy, effort, reputation. All of those units of value are an investment, essentially, that you're putting into your company. And like any venture capitalist, when an entrepreneur pitches me for an investment, one of the things that we always have to ask the entrepreneur, in addition to what their vision is, what the background of the team is, and all are great things, we have to ask, what are you going to do with the money that I give you? Because we want to make sure that they're going to use it. Every single dollar is going to be used to increase shareholder value over time so that we can get a return and the other shareholders, including yourselves, can also get a return. Let's talk about how to do this right from day one. We've heard some great talks, Dr. Saeed, Raphael, about what the mindset that you should have. So my presentation, I'm really aiming at more tactical things that you can consider when you're looking to build your company, and laying the foundation right at the beginning is so critical for that. Okay, so one of the most important things you need to do is choose the right customer segment. We heard that you need to get out of the building, speak with customers, ensure that you're developing a business model in such a way that's going to resonate with them, that's going to connect your solution to the problems that they have, connect your product to the market. But how do you do that in a way to make your company scalable and survivable? Well, remember, when you're a startup, you have limited resources, very limited resources, and you're also very small. You might be competing with legacy industry titans, and you have to carve out your own little pocket of the market where you can laser focus on and give those customers a reason to choose buying from you versus any other option. But it all has to start with, who are you going to choose to be your customer? Well, when you're looking to select a customer segment, first of all, you have to identify who the customer is. There was a company in our incubator, the Startup Visa Incubator, and yes, I've spoken with him, and he loves the idea of me using his company and product example. He called RoboCare. So when he first joined our incubator, he still has this amazing product. It is meant for people who are bedridden, elderly, people who have a terrible disease or have been in an accident and they can't get out of bed. So this robotic bed essentially allows for the patient to not get bed sores, to be able to use the bed like a toilet or a bath, and also moves in such a way to make the caregivers much more able to easily take care of the patient because they could use the robotics so they don't have to move the patient themselves as much. So when I spoke with the entrepreneur, I said to him, who's your customer? And he said, well, isn't it obvious? It's people who are bedridden. Like we just talked about that. People who are injured, elderly, etc. And then I asked him, okay, so those are your end users. Those might be your consumers. But who's your customer? Are those the people who are also going to be buying the bed, or are they just using the bed? So he said, oh, well, there's the people using it. I said, okay, fair enough. So who's buying it? And then he said to me, hospitals, potentially. They could be senior citizen centers, rehabilitation centers, families who have elderly members of their family who need that bed so they can look after them. And then I said to him, okay, well, you just mentioned like 3 or 4 completely different customer segments. And you know they're completely different, because if you ask yourself, how do I market to the customer segment? What does the sales cycle look like? How do I connect with the key decision maker who's going to buy this product? What's the corporate culture like in terms of facilitating this transaction? What's the budget of this customer segment? You'll clearly see among the different customer segments, they're completely different on how you answer those questions. So the size of the market you're going after, you have to have that Goldilocks kind of scenario where it's not so big that it's saturated by the big industry players. But it can't be so small that you're not able to make money from it. It's got to be that right type of niche where you can look at it and say, this market is being neglected. I'm just going to service the hell out of it. I'm going to show my customers that there is one company out there, one brand, one product that has been designed specifically and only for you, giving them no logical reason to buy from anyone else but you. The pain that you have to be looking for has to be what we call in the VC world, bleeding neck wound issue. Something that we'll simply have to solve. Remember, our customers in here, we're in survival mode. We have to bring cash flow in as fast as possible. Timing, what's the sales cycle? Yes, selling to St. Mike's Hospital would be a huge opportunity because they could, once they agree to buy our beds, they could probably buy hundreds of them. But if you need to get money in the door as fast as possible, how long is it going to take to even reach a decision maker, let alone have them decide to buy from you, versus someone on the completely opposite side of the sales cycle spectrum, which would be a family. They don't have the same budget, but you might be able to interact with the key decision maker right away and they could decide within a couple of days whether they want to buy from you. And then you have cash flow coming in. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind. I'm going to show you a graph later on in my presentation called the J curve, which is going to show you how critical it is in choosing your customer segment and choosing one that allows you to bring cash flow in right on day one. And when I talk about cash flow coming into your business, I'm talking about free cash flow from operations. I'm not talking about invested cash flow. Because what we heard from Dr. Saeed and Raphael is that investors, they don't want to take risk. The markets are insanely risky right now. All of this tariff craziness is causing volatility like we've never seen before. Even the bond markets are tanking at the same time as the stock market. So investors don't want to take more risk investing in something that's not proven. We want to de-risk our investments as much as possible while still maintaining the highest potential return that we can. So you have to go through this first. No one's going to want to give you money to figure this out. You have to figure this out on your own. You have to get out of the building. Don't let the tail wag the dog. That's some of the biggest advice I could give an entrepreneur. Don't create a business model so that you can get VC funding, so that a VC will help you figure out how to create a successful business. First, you have to create a successful business. And you create the successful business by developing a product or service that is resonating with the customers, that they're willing to pay for, where you're able to get cash flow coming in. So your business model should adapt the way the customer is telling you it should adapt, the way the market is telling you it should adapt. You shouldn't be going to a VC like myself and saying, Stuart, I heard VCs like companies that provide this type of product and have this sort of features within it. That would be the biggest kind of red flag for me. I'd be like, look, you should be designing your business plan based on what the customer wants, not what a VC wants. So as your product or service, your business model evolves, if it evolves that is a fit for a venture capitalist and you feel you need VC financing, then you can pitch to a VC. But don't create a business model just to get VC financing, because it won't happen. Okay, a venture capitalist perspective versus an entrepreneur's perspective. This is very important. This is why we keep hearing about 90% of entrepreneurs failing. So I'm going to give you secret insight to make sure you're within the 10% of the companies that succeed. Are you ready for that? Here's an entrepreneur's perspective versus an investor's perspective. Imagine this is a pro forma financial statement, so it's forward-looking. The entrepreneur is so enthusiastic about their product and service that they feel for sure in Q3 of next year, there's going to be customers lining up to buy it from us. Look, we crunched the numbers don't lie. It's right there. The investor, on the other hand, thinks, okay, well, maybe they've somewhat proved the concept of their product, can execute. I guess I didn't get the, okay, let me fast forward a bit. Okay, so how much time do I have left, or is that it? 5 minutes? Okay, cool. I can definitely wrap up in 5 minutes. Okay, so I've been involved with companies that have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. Raising money, having money to spend, does not mean you have a successful business. Like if somebody invested in my company, and they did, ChargeRequest, who raised $4 million, it wasn't a time to celebrate, party, get on a yacht, go crazy. That was the time where, oh my God, now we have to deliver on all of these things we've promised when we pitched all of these investors on bait. It really felt like a gun to our head, and we had to increase shareholder value as fast as possible. And so, with this entrepreneur versus investors perspective, the investors who are sophisticated and they've been involved in a lot of early stage companies know the unpredictability of investing in early stage. It's very risky. It's often. And if an entrepreneur makes decisions like incurring debt, spending resources, with the expectation that the sales are going to come through or that investors are going to put money in, they're going to be putting in a very desperate position where if that doesn't come through, they're going to go bankrupt. And that's why companies go bankrupt. Because they see the world with rose-colored glasses, and they think that just because they've done the research, just because their friends and family tell them it's a great idea, just because they think it's such a cool thing that they are creating or building, and just because they're hustling and working really hard and staying up all night, that they are somehow, the universe is going to reward them with a successful company. It's not happening. So utilizing resources to scale. This is the J curve that I promised I would show you. Can I see a show of hands of who's seen this before? Okay, so there's still a lot of people who haven't. And it could be a refresher for those who have seen it before. So this J curve is a great visual tool to showcase this thing called burn rate return. Burn rate is the average amount of money you're spending with your business within a month. Runway is the number of months that you have before your company is out of money. So it's quite simple calculation if you were to look at it. Runway was the total amount of cash that you have on hand divided by the burn rate, which is the average amount of money you spend per month, and that gives you your runway, the number of months you have where you run out of money. So if you look here, this is the J curve. So it basically shows that from a cumulative cash flow standpoint, companies spend money before they start making money, obviously. They have to spend money in research and development, legal work, sales, marketing, etc., etc. And once the company breaks even, so the amount of free cash flow that is leaving the business equals the amount of cash flow that is coming into the business through operations to zero. And at that point, your company can be considered a success. Not that it's generating a huge amount of returns, but it's a going concern, or a company that could exist, hopefully into perpetuity, because the income is meeting the expenses. So the issue here is making sure that you don't get to the end of your runway before you cross over into break-even territory. So you're in a race against time. Your runway every day is getting closer and closer to the end. And if you get end of your runway before you break even, your company's going to fail. There's a reason why that dip in the J curve was called Valley of Death. So everything you do should be focused on increasing shareholder value and bringing cash flow in. Okay, I'm going to show you one more slide. Those of you in the incubation program should be familiar with this. It's called the Burkus method. It's essentially a valuation tool to look at your company and value it. I'm not going to go through it, but I will say this is a great example of what entrepreneurs should focus on to increase shareholder value. Innovative idea, prototype, quality of management team, strategic relationships, product rollout, or sales. When we give money to a company and we ask them what they want to invest it in, what they want to spend it on, you don't have to just look at it as capital, as mentioned. Look at every unit of value that you're putting into your business. Like I said, time, reputation, energy, capital as well. It should be laser focused on doing exactly that. Increasing shareholder value and trying to cash flow in as fast as possible. So capital assets, you look at that as an expense. Capital assets, like a Lamborghini, depreciates over time. So I would not be investing in one who looks like that and is planning on spending my money on something like this. But it also includes like a desk or a computer. Product development dramatically increases shareholder value because that's essentially what you're selling at the end of the day. So it could be proven to make things more efficient. It could be features that are added to your product that are going to make it more attractive for customers to buy from you. Leadership and administration, that's a good capital. The product, the service has been connect with the customers, and you find that, as in the case of this ed tech company, you're selling to the Ontario Ministry of Education, former procurement officer from that government entity who could work with you and get you access. Then it could be a good use of your capital. But it would be a bad use of capital spending money on leadership and administration. If you bring that person in, and then you decide later you should be selling to private school or homes directly. Likewise with sales. It's validated, you can spend money on sales, and they can sell the products for you. But if you haven't validated the product or service yet, you don't know if they're a bad salesperson or if you have a bad business model. Thanks everyone, I really appreciate the opportunity. Enjoy the rest of the event.